My child. Before I begin, breathe slowly. I am Archangel Michael, and I speak to you not to frighten you, but to guide you into truth. Truth is light, and light is protection. And today, you must hear this truth gently, because I know your heart has been stretched, shaken, and tired. You came here because you can feel something is wrong with someone in your life, a vibration that doesn't match their words, a silence hidden behind their smiles, a kind of emotional fog that makes it hard for you to see your own worth clearly. And you are right to question. You are right to observe. You are right to look deeper. But listen carefully, my child. Not every person who touches your heart deserves to hold it. Now, let me guide you into the story of what is truly happening. The emotional game, the unseen intentions, the secret motives. And most importantly, your power in all of this. Stay with me, and as you listen, if anything I say resonates with your situation, whisper it in the comments so your truth can breathe. Do not overthink. Do not hesitate. Just acknowledge what your soul already knows. My child. You have always been someone who loves with sincerity. You do not love halfway. When you give fully. When you trust completely. Your heart has never known how to play games. Your spirit has never understood manipulation. You approach others with honest eyes, open palms, and an innocent expectation that they will treat you with the same sincerity you offer. But the person you are dealing with right now does not carry that same purity. Their words sound sweet, but their actions carry shadows. Their promises feel warm, but their intentions feel cold. Their presence seems comforting, but somehow your intuition keeps whispering, something is not right. And you keep ignoring that whisper, don't you? You forgive too quickly. You analyze yourself before analyzing them. You believe their excuses instead of believing your own emotions. My child. This person is fooling you emotionally. Not because you are weak, but because you are kind. It is your purity, not your foolishness, that makes you vulnerable. Let me tell you what they are actually doing. They are feeding off your trust. They are feeding off your hope. And in a very subtle way, they are controlling the direction of your emotions without you even realizing it. Sometimes they pull you close. Sometimes they push you away. And every time they see you trying harder, caring deeper, or questioning your own worth, they gain power. This is intentional. Not accidental. Not unconscious. Intentional. This person knows exactly how much you care. They know you fear losing them. They know you blame yourself even when it isn't your fault. They know you try to maintain peace even when they disturb it. And they use that to keep you attached to them. My child. This is emotional manipulation wrapped in affection. They give you just enough to keep you hopeful. But never enough to keep you secure. They apologize only when they fear you might walk away. But not because they actually feel remorse. They talk about the future with you. But their actions never move in that direction. They pretend to care deeply. But they only care about what they gain from you. This is not love. This is not companionship. This is not connection. This is a tactic. And their actual intention is not to build something with you. but to control the access they have to your emotions. You feel it, don't you? That tightness in your chest when they suddenly change their tone. That confusion when they act distant without explanation. That craving for closure that they never give you. That emotional roller coaster that never truly stops. This is what emotional mind games look like. This is what manipulation feels like. This is what a hidden agenda sounds like. My child. You cannot heal in the same environment that is hurting you. And you cannot grow while you are being emotionally drained. But you are not weak. You are not trapped. And you are not alone. You are awakening. You are beginning to see patterns. You are beginning to trust your intuition again. You are beginning to feel the truth behind their mask. And I, Archangel Michael, am here standing beside you, blade of truth in hand, clearing the confusion that has been forced upon you. You were never meant to suffer in silence. You were never meant to question your own worth. You were never meant to shrink just to keep someone else comfortable. Their actual intention was not to love you, but to keep you available. Not to honor you, but to use your emotional generosity. Not to cherish you, but to depend on your vulnerability. But this story is not over. Not yet. Because there is something powerful happening inside you right now. You are not breaking. You are breaking free. And you must listen to this next part with all your heart. You are beginning to reclaim the parts of yourself you forgot. Your confidence. Your clarity. Your boundaries. Your voice. Your intuition, your most sacred compass. The hold this person has over you is slipping. Not because they changed, but because you are changing. You are starting to recognize their patterns before they play out. You are starting to see the distance between their words and actions. You are starting to feel the weight of their false promises. You are starting to observe instead of absorb. My child. You are awakening to the truth that you deserve more. More honesty. More respect. More emotional safety. More love that feels like peace, not chaos. And I know it hurts to admit that someone you cared about had hidden motives. I know it hurts to realize they valued your attention more than your well-being. I know it hurts when love becomes a lesson instead of a refuge. But do not allow this pain to turn into self-blame. You didn't fail. You learned. You didn't lose. You grew. You didn't get played because you were foolish. You got manipulated because you have a heart that believes in goodness. And your heart is still your greatest strength. Now I want you to answer this silently, or in the comments if you feel safe. Does their behavior ever make you doubt your own worth? If your heart whispered, yes, you already know the truth. My child. You are not here to be emotionally fooled. You are here to become emotionally free. You don't need their validation. You don't need their attention. You don't need their mixed signals. You don't need their conditional affection. You only need the truth. And today, you received it. My child. Come closer, because what I am about to reveal requires clarity, courage, and calmness. I am Archangel Michael, and my purpose now is to guide you through the fog that this person has wrapped around your heart. You have already begun to awaken, but awakening is only the first step. Now you must reclaim what was slowly being taken from you: your power, your voice, your emotional freedom. Before we continue, breathe deeply. Inhale truth. Exhale fear. And listen. My child. When someone emotionally fools you, they do not just manipulate your feelings, they manipulate your perception. They shift the way you see them, but even worse, they shift the way you see yourself. They create a reality where you feel responsible for their mood, for their distance, for their silence, for their coldness. You start believing that if you just gave more, loved more, waited more, apologized more, things would finally feel right. But the truth is, they never intended for things to feel right. They intended for things to feel uncertain, because uncertainty is the strongest form of emotional control. Let me explain it to you gently, my child. When a person wants real love, they create clarity. When a person wants control, they create confusion. And the confusion you have been living with. The cycles, the mixed signals, the sudden withdrawals, the inconsistent affection. None of it was accidental. They knew that keeping you emotionally off balance would keep you attached. They knew that giving you small moments of affection after long periods of neglect would make you crave them even more. They knew that disappearing and returning would make you fear losing them. They knew that withholding explanation would make you question yourself. They knew that you would personalize their behavior instead of recognizing their patterns. My child. This is not love. This is strategy. But now, you are no longer blind to it. And the moment awareness arrives, their power begins to crumble. Let me guide you into understanding something deeper. This person never controlled you because they were powerful. They controlled you because they studied your kindness. They knew you couldn't walk away easily. They knew you loved deeply. They knew you cared sincerely. They knew your soul was not wired for abandonment. So they used the very qualities that make you beautiful as the very tools to keep you bound. But hear this clearly. Your kindness is not a weakness. Your love is not foolishness. Your loyalty is not a flaw. Your empathy is not your enemy. These are divine gifts. And now, you must learn to use these gifts for yourself, not against yourself. My child, listen carefully, because this part is important. If someone's behavior makes you feel like you are never enough, then the problem is not your efforts. The problem is their intentions. You could give them your time, your heart, your care, your innocence. And it still wouldn't be enough. Not because you are lacking, but because they never came to build. They only came to take. This is where your freedom begins. Their emotional tricks only work when you keep giving. Control only works when you keep explaining yourself. Manipulation only works when you keep hoping they will change. Confusion only works when you doubt your intuition. So now I will tell you exactly how to break their emotional control. Quietly, powerfully, and gracefully. My child. The first step is awareness. You already have that. The second step is detachment. Not anger. Not drama. Not confrontation. Just quiet emotional detachment. Because manipulators do not fear your anger. They fear your clarity. They fear when you stop reacting. They fear when you stop chasing. They fear when you stop explaining yourself. They fear when you stop giving them emotional energy. And you, my child, are learning to do exactly that. Start by observing them instead of absorbing their behavior. Watch how often they contradict themselves. Watch how quickly they shift blame. Watch how they disappear the moment you need them. Watch how they return the moment you pull away. Watch how they give affection only when they want something. When you stop explaining yourself, their tactics begin to fail. When you stop waiting, their confidence begins to shake. When you stop worrying about losing them, their control dissolves. Because the truth is, you were never under their power. You were under their illusion. My child, tell me honestly. Have you ever noticed how they suddenly give you attention when you finally stop trying? If this resonates, write yes softly in the comments. That pattern alone reveals everything. Real love doesn't panic when you focus on yourself. Control does. Real connection doesn't strengthen when you suffer. Manipulation does. Real affection doesn't rise only when they feel you slipping. Insecurity does. Let me show you something deeper, something your heart must finally understand. This person was not afraid of losing you. They were afraid of losing the way you made them feel about themselves. You made them feel admired. You made them feel superior. You made them feel desired. You made them feel needed. You gave them emotional power. And that power fed them. So of course they didn't want to lose it. Not you. Just the advantages your love provided. But now that you see the truth, their advantage is disappearing. And this is where your transformation begins. You do not need to confront them. You do not need to argue. You do not need to expose them. You do not need to prove anything. All you need to do is reclaim your inner balance. My child, walk slowly away from emotional chaos. Disengage from their mind games. Do not respond to their sudden, "I miss you." Do not fall for their, "I was just busy." Do not break because of their silence. Do not melt because of their temporary warmth. Observe. Stay centered. Stay in truth. Because when you rise into clarity, you become untouchable. The next part 1 will show you what happens emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically inside the manipulator when they realize they are losing their hold over you. My child, you have walked with me through truth, and now you are ready to understand the part that many never see. The moment you begin to detach, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, something dramatic begins to happen inside the person who once believed they had control over your heart. They feel the shift long before you say anything. They sense the silence long before you walk away. They notice the distance long before you consciously create it. And because their intentions were never genuine, your healing becomes their fear. My child, listen very carefully. People who emotionally manipulate others do not fear losing love. They fear losing access. They fear losing influence. They fear losing the emotional energy that you unknowingly fed them. They fear losing the version of you that forgave quickly, explained everything, overgave without receiving, and tolerated their inconsistencies. So the moment you begin to rise out of their emotional shadow, their inner world begins to shake. Quietly, secretly, silently, but powerfully. Let me guide you through what actually happens inside them. My child. The first thing they feel is confusion. Because for so long, they believed they knew exactly how to trigger you. They knew what to say to make you doubt yourself. They knew how long to stay silent before you would reach out. They knew when to give affection to pull you back. They knew when to withdraw to make you crave closeness. But suddenly, their usual tactics no longer work. You don't panic when they pull away. You don't chase when they go silent. You don't break when they ignore you. You don't melt when they return with sweet words. This confuses them deeply. Because manipulators rely on predictability. And your emotional reactions used to be predictable. Not anymore. My child. The second thing they feel is loss of control. Not love, control. For the first time, they feel powerless. They feel like they are slipping from the center of your emotional world. They feel you shifting your energy inward instead of toward them. They feel your power returning to you, piece by piece. They may not admit it. They may not show it. But they feel it like a crack forming in their foundation. And this scares them. Because control is their security. Your detachment is their threat. My child. Then comes the third stage, panic. This panic never looks dramatic. It shows up quietly in subtle ways. Suddenly, they start messaging you more often. Suddenly, they ask why you are acting different. Suddenly, they offer compliments you rarely heard before. Suddenly, they try to bring back memories to make you emotionally soften. Suddenly, they present themselves as caring, thoughtful, attentive. This sudden, sweet version of them is not love. It is fear disguised as affection. They sense you slipping away. And they are desperately trying to pull you back into their emotional orbit. My child. But here is what truly reveals their intentions. When they realize kindness is not pulling you back, they switch to irritation. They may become cold again. Short-tempered. Passive-aggressive. Dismissive. Confusing. Blaming. Silent. Because anger becomes their last attempt at regaining power. Manipulators often switch between affection and withdrawal. Because inconsistency is their strongest weapon. But now, their inconsistency no longer affects you the way it once did. You do not crumble. You do not beg. You do not chase. You do not explain. You simply observe. And that alone breaks their pattern. My child. When the manipulator realizes that their emotional tricks do not trigger you anymore, another deep fear rises inside them. The fear that you finally see their true intentions. Because they never expected you to understand the emotional game they were quietly playing. They never expected you to find clarity. They never expected you to detach. They never expected you to regain your power. So now, inside their mind, a new thought appears. What if I lose them completely? But remember, my child. They are not afraid of losing your love. They are afraid of losing the comfort they had in your loyalty. They are afraid of losing the attention they took for granted. They are afraid of losing the emotional supply they relied on. They are afraid of losing the version of you they could control. Your growth is their loss. Your awakening is their downfall. Your clarity is their fear. And that is why they suddenly start trying harder. But only when they feel your silence. My child. If anything I am saying feels like your situation, just whisper, "I feel this," in the comments. You don't need to explain anything. Just acknowledge what your heart already knows. Now listen closely. A manipulative person has a unique reaction when they realize you are no longer emotionally fooled by them. They begin to mirror your behavior. They start acting like the person you always wanted them to be. They act consistent. They act apologetic. They act caring. They act attentive. They act like someone who values you. But this version of them is temporary. It is not growth. It is strategy. They don't want to change their habits. They want to change your mind. And the moment they feel you coming closer again, their behavior slowly returns to the same patterns you once suffered through. Coldness, distance, confusion, silence, blame, inconsistency. Because manipulation is not something they do occasionally. It is the language they speak, the tool they use, the method they depend on. My child. They do not want to lose you. But they never truly wanted to keep you in the right way. They wanted access, not accountability. They wanted affection, not responsibility. They wanted your loyalty, not partnership. They wanted your emotional energy, not emotional effort. So when you detach, they do not feel heartbreak. They feel disruption. And that disruption pushes them into a cycle of emotional desperation. They test you. They tempt you. They bait you. They try to pull you back. They try to confuse you again. But here is the part that will empower you the most. The moment you choose yourself over them, their entire strategy collapses. Because their power was never in who they were. Their power was in how much you feared losing them. And you, my child, are finally losing that fear. You no longer fear their distance. You no longer fear their silence. You no longer fear their disappointment. You no longer fear their withdrawal. Your fear is transforming into wisdom. And wisdom cannot be manipulated. My child. My child. Now that you understand what happens inside the person who once fooled you emotionally, it is time to understand something even more important: what happens inside you when you finally detach. Because what you are experiencing is not just emotional separation, it is spiritual awakening. It is the beginning of a transformation that changes the way your heart loves, the way your mind perceives, and the way your soul protects itself. Sit with me for a moment, my child. Take a slow breath. Feel the weight of everything you've survived, and everything you're becoming. I, Archangel Michael, am still with you. The light you are stepping into now is yours. My child. When you detach from someone who manipulated your emotions, your soul does not just release them, your soul begins to rewrite itself. The pieces that were taken from you slowly return. The energy that was drained from you slowly fills back in. The clarity that was clouded by their confusion slowly becomes sharp and powerful. Detachment is not the loss they think it is. Detachment is the freedom they never expected you to claim. And this freedom starts to change you in ways they cannot understand. My child. The first thing that changes inside you is your emotional vibration. You begin to rise. Your heart begins to heal. Your energy begins to brighten. Your intuition becomes louder. Your mind becomes clearer. You start noticing things you once ignored. Red flags, patterns, inconsistencies, false words, shallow apologies. And because you are rising in vibration, these things no longer feel confusing. They feel obvious. It becomes easier for you to say, "This is not love. This is not respect. This is not alignment. This is not my truth." And that clarity, my child, is the birth of emotional maturity. The second thing that changes is your boundaries. Not boundaries forced by pain, but boundaries created from self-respect. Where once you tolerated silence, now you recognize it as manipulation. Where once you chased explanations, now you understand they are unnecessary. Where once you accepted bare minimum effort, now you see it as disrespect. Where once you excused their inconsistency, now you see it as a reflection of their character. This new understanding reshapes everything inside you. My child. The third transformation is subtle but powerful. Your heart begins to choose differently. You no longer feel attracted to chaos. You no longer feel attached to emotional highs and lows. You no longer crave their validation. You no longer feel weak when someone pulls away. You no longer feel empty when someone does not choose you. Why? Because you are beginning to choose yourself. And a person who has learned to choose themselves can never again be controlled by someone who doesn't choose them. The fourth change inside you is inner peace. This peace is not silent. It is not small. It is not fragile. It is steady. It is confident. It is protective. It is powerful. This peace comes from finally understanding that you did not lose anything. Your heart was never wrong. Your heart was simply trying to love someone who didn't know what to do with love. And now that you're awakening, you see this clearly. My child. Another deep change happens when you detach. You start noticing how loud your intuition truly is. Your intuition always tried to warn you. Through uneasiness. Through subtle discomfort. Through emotional confusion. Through that soft whisper saying, "Something is off." But you silenced that voice because you cared too much for them. You didn't want to believe your heart could be treated unfairly. You didn't want to believe someone you loved had hidden motives. You didn't want to believe your kindness was being used against you. But now, your intuition is waking up. And this time, you are listening. You begin to feel the difference between someone who speaks with intention and someone who speaks with manipulation. You begin to feel the difference between real affection and emotional bait. You begin to feel the difference between attention and connection. You begin to feel the difference between love and attachment. This new emotional awareness becomes part of your soul. It makes you wiser. It makes you stronger. It makes you harder to deceive. My child. The next transformation is the most beautiful one. Your standards rise. You no longer settle for mixed signals. You no longer settle for half love. You no longer settle for temporary affection. You no longer settle for someone who only wants access to you, not partnership with you. You no longer settle for anyone who makes you feel small, ignored, confused, or unworthy. You realize that your heart is not something to be played with. Your emotions are not something to be manipulated. Your love is not something to be misused. And this is where the biggest shift happens. Your soul begins to glow again. Now listen to me, my child. There is another transformation inside you that I must reveal. You begin to develop emotional intuition. The ability to sense someone's intention before they speak. To feel energy before you see behavior. To understand motives before you get attached. This intuition protects you from being fooled again. And because you now vibrate on a higher level, you attract different people. People with honesty, clarity, emotional maturity, and real love. The person who manipulated you was part of your past, not your future. They were a lesson, not a destiny, not a soulmate, not a forever. A lesson. And you, my child, are the one who learned it. If you feel even a little of what I'm saying, whisper, "I'm awakening," in the comments. Because you are.